Hello, everyone. It's Victoria with Nutrition by Victoria. I have a master's of science in human nutrition, and I'm here to help you build a high-functioning metabolism by learning what to eat to support a high metabolism. So I have a coaching program that I wrote up, and it explains everything that you need to know about your metabolism, which I talk about a lot on this channel too. In order to understand what it is that you need to eat. So, first, we have to know how the human body functions in terms of metabolism, and then we can determine from there what it is that we're supposed to eat. So in my coaching program, we go over understanding the human metabolism, the fundamentals of an optimal diet and lifestyle based on the information that we learned in the about the human metabolism. Then we go over diet and lifestyle planning, and then troubleshooting your results, including learning everything that we need to know about the hormones heavily involved in our metabolism, including sex hormones, testosterone, estrogen, thyroid hormones, and all of that. So I highly suggest, if you are a regular viewer of my channel or new to my channel, that you get a copy of my coaching program. It comes with video explanation, so it's laid out like a PDF, like notes you would get in a college course, right? And I explain everything. So this is like a crash college course in nutrition, where the information is highly advanced, but laid out in a way where it is easy to understand. So hopefully for those of you who already have the program, you're enjoying it. And for those of you who don't have it yet, I highly recommend getting a copy, just so then you have the information, you have the tools to move forward, to let go of diet dogma, and to be able to do what I do here on this channel, which is be analytical about what other people have to say about nutrition, right? Does it align with the metabolic science, or are they just speaking in terms of, propaganda? The thing about recommending something other than what I recommend, which is a high carb, low fat diet to support metabolic health. It's really common right now for doctors and nutritionists and metabolic experts to be recommending the opposite, a high fat, high protein, low carb diet. But if you understand the science, then you know that that is not the best approach for maintaining and sustaining weight loss, as well as health. And it all comes down to insulin sensitivity. So I just want to show too, I have this little, collage here of my diet. I eat fruit till 4, basically. So we got fruit, sugar, there's sugar in those strawberries there, and starches. Sushi rolls are my fave. But this is my progression. So in this first photo here, this is probably, I would say, the year 2014. I went all in 2012, March of 2012. Went from about 125 pounds, which I was basically anorexic, from following diet dogma, right? Doing the fasting, doing the low carb thing, taking stimulants to suppress my appetite and to give me energy, right? Wrecked my metabolism, went all in on carbs, gained a whole bunch of weight, gained up to 185 pounds. And then after I plateaued off, I just kept eating all the carbs, keeping my diet low and fat. And then gradually my body got slimmer and slimmer again over time. So this is about by 2015, because I got pregnant in 2015. So this is a year progression here after I reached my highest weight. Okay, so I weight plateaued. And the reason why this works so well is because, according to the dietetic factors influencing the glucose tolerance and the activity of insulin by H.P. Hemsworth, I am referencing this out of the National Library of Medicine's database and the Journal of Physiology here. So this is peer-reviewed scientific research that is still being accepted as factual information. Okay. I had somebody in the comments say, you can't reference that study because of when it was produced. That is not true. Okay. If it's up on these databases, this is legitimate information. This is like gold standard, you know, primary based research literature that is accepted as factual information. The other thing too is that H.P. Hemsworth, because of this research, developed the oral glucose tolerance test that we use in standard medical practice today. He also determined the difference between a type 1 and type 2 diabetic and did a lot for the advancement of understanding glucose tolerance in the medical community. Now, do we subscribe to the diet that he recommends here? No. And I'm not really sure where that discrepancy happened, but it's pretty standard, right? If you tell somebody how to eat in a way that makes you insulin sensitive and healthy and slim and lean, then you're no longer going to need medical services. You're no longer going to be swayed by diet propaganda on the media, right? When the media has been telling us for the last 30 years that sugar is bad for us, that we need to eat more healthy fats, that we need to eat more protein, more animal products, when in fact that has led to the chronic disease epidemic that we are experiencing today. And it all comes back to this, that sugar tolerance or glucose tolerance or insulin sensitivity is impaired by starvation or the taking of diets with a high content of fat. That is what was determined by his research here. And you can read the whole research article if you have time. Just download the PDF and give it a read. It's a pretty quick one. While glucose tolerance, sugar tolerance is improved by taking diets containing excessive carbohydrates. So we got a high carb, low fat, calorie sufficient diet makes insulin work better. And that's what promotes insulin sensitivity. That's what produces these effortless results in the weight loss department long term. And this is what maintains your health, because most diseases are born from insulin resistance, unfortunately. So we're just going to go ahead and pull up some information here on my Instagram. Okay. Just trying to go into. So this is Freely, high carb, low fat. You can see all these slim people on here actually from, eating a high carb, low fat diet. Where is my little blip about insulin? I think I made it a post. Okay, so we'll just go through here. Okay, this is Hadley. She eats a high carb, low fat diet. Okay. This is Keisha. Keisha is one of my clients. She's in my coaching group. She recently lost 50 pounds after recovering from metabolic damage. This is Freely the Banana Girl. High carb, low fat for the last 20 years almost. And she has good insulin sensitivity. This is one of my clients, Louise. Slim, fit, healthy. You guys seeing a pattern here? Okay. Let's see what else I got in here. This is myself. I was just on vacation last week. Long-term results. Slim, lean body. Insulin sensitivity. Okay, what else did I want to show on here? Okay, this is my friend Amber. She is a mom of 4. She had twins less than 2 years ago. Oh, where'd it go? And she looks amazing. High carb, low fat diet. High carb, low fat diet. High carb, low fat diet. This guy eats a relatively high carb, low fat diet, He's definitely vegan. Okay, so you can see a pattern. Oh yeah, this is the real Sugar King. Watch this before and after, okay? This is his before. All right, you can see he's carrying some extra abdominal fat there. Now he got on the high carb, low fat, strict bandwagon. And let's see here. Gotta pause it there. And he has lost the weight. Okay, we'll go to the real. I mean, the truth is the proof is in the pudding. Okay, here we go. Here's one of his pictures, right? Lost all the weight, high carb, low fat. This is his wife too. High carb, low fat. Are you guys seeing the pattern here? Carbohydrates don't make you fat, okay? A high carb, low fat diet makes your body insulin sensitive so you can get these kinds of results, okay? That's why I show you guys what I look like every time I film at the beginning of my videos, just showing that these kind of results are sustainable and they're permanent and you have them all year round. So we're going to get into today's video here. Okay, so this is today's video. This was sent to me. So we're going to listen to a little bit of it. I'm going to debunk it. This is the Ultimate Health Podcast. There's so much of this out here, and every single one of them has the same message. Carbs are bad. They spike your insulin, make you fat and sick, right? When it's the complete opposite in terms of ultimate disease outcome and weight loss, right? So this is Jesse Chappis. It looks like he has quite a bit of subscribers, 300,028. How to unlock stored body fat and force your body to burn it with Dr. Zoe Harcombe. Okay, let's get started.
Driving this extra energy into fat cells and causing all kinds of issues that way.
Yeah, so when you tell people at conferences, there are a few things that you say at a conference, and you're always looking for the audience reaction. And one of the ones that gets a sort of sit up, if not a bit of a gasp, is when you tell people you've got 1 teaspoon of sugar in your bloodstream at any one time, 4 grams of glucose in the entire bloodstream, in 5 liters of blood or whatever. And they look really sort of quite taken aback.
Yeah, that's because most people have no clue about how the human body works. Our blood sugar level has to remain at that 4 grams all the time. And that is what keeps our system in homeostatic balance.
And then the body has got this incredible mechanism. You've got the pancreas releasing insulin to take glucose out of the bloodstream and glucagon to put glucose back into the bloodstream. So you've got this incredible mechanism until we abuse it, that is keeping that blood glucose level at that sort of 4 grams per the entire body. So then you say to people, okay, so you have an apple. Now, an apple is partly glucose, partly fructose, slightly more fructose. Keep the maths simple again, 20 grams of apple, 20 grams of carbohydrate in a moderate apple. About 10 grams are going to be glucose, 10 grams are going to be fructose. The fructose is going to go to the liver. Hello, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
If fruit caused non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, then the people who are presenting with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease would be fruitarians, but they are not. Okay, the people who present with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease have insulin resistance from their fatty diet, okay? And they're usually consuming a mixed diet of carbohydrate with fat. It's generally a very processed food diet where we've got a lot of like sodas and high fructose corn syrup there, which isn't the problem, okay? And I showed this in a study on let me just pull it up here. I have it linked in my videos for you guys. I put a whole bunch of studies that I like to reference quite a bit that just kind of debunks this whole sugar myth. Yeah, here we go. Sucrose, high fructose corn syrup. It's basically that sugar isn't the problem, okay? It's the fat in the diet that is the problem when it comes to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. I just think it's crazy. Really, you're going to tell people that an apple causes fatty liver disease? Like, that's insanity. What really happens is that the fructose goes to the liver where it will serve several fates. Okay, so fructose, and I'm going to show you guys on the study here. This is again the National Library of Medicine. Sucrose, high fructose corn syrup, and fructose, their metabolism and potential health effects. What do we really know? Not to mention, I've been eating a high fruit diet for 13 years now, and I never have had elevated liver enzymes show up in my blood work, just to let you know. Okay, so we are going to go down here to fructose metabolism. Okay, so fructose is going to have several fates here, okay? It can go to the liver where it can be converted into triglycerides, but it can also be converted into glycogen. It can also be converted into glucose. It can also be converted into lactate, and it can also just be burned up, and the CO2 is a byproduct of metabolism, okay? And then it can also go into triglycerides in this way. So it all depends on your insulin sensitivity, to be honest, the fate of fructose, right? So in most cases, if you're insulin sensitive, you're going to be down regulating the process of de novo lipogenesis, where the fructose is going to be turning into triglyceride or fat, and you are going to be using this fructose as either glucose, or you're going to be turning it into glycogen, depending on the needs of your body. So we always need to be burning glucose and having sufficient glucose available, which is why we have a storage mechanism for glucose, aka glycogen. So when we don't have any more glucose kind of circulating around, or our blood sugar levels come back to normal, but our cells are still demanding glucose for energy production, then we're going to be tapping into glycogen. So we always want to be topping off our glycogen stores so that we're not turning on gluconeogenesis, which is a process that slows down our metabolic rate. And I go over all of that in my coaching program. Okay, let's listen to some more of what this Dr. Zoe has to say.
And the glucose is going to go into the bloodstream. And that's 10 grams of glucose that's gone into the bloodstream. So when you point that out to people, you think snacking on an apple is super healthy.
Okay, 10 grams of glucose is not a lot at all, okay? When you do an oral glucose tolerance test, you're consuming 50 grams of glucose, and that is the gold standard for diagnosing insulin resistance. You are chugging back 50 grams of glucose.
You just put into the bloodstream 2.5 times the glucose that it wants in the entire bloodstream. And actually, it was quite happy. It was in balance.
Okay, here's the deal. The body always wants to be in balance, but we are designed to eat. We are designed to turn the glucose that we consume into energy. Okay, so the glucose that we consume doesn't just hang about in our bloodstream. Okay, there are changes that occur when we eat food. So when we consume this oral glucose, tolerance solution, the 50 grams of glucose, or this apple that has only 10 grams of glucose, we are going to be releasing insulin. Our pancreas releases insulin to take the sugar out of the blood and put it into our muscle cells for energy generation, or it's going to go towards replenishing glycogen. Okay, so it's not that our body doesn't have the capability of maintaining its blood sugar balance. It all comes down to insulin working correctly. So if your insulin's not working correctly, then those extra grams of glucose are going to be hanging about in your bloodstream, and it's going to register on a glucose meter as elevated blood sugar levels. And sugar is not the problem though. It's insulin working correctly. If we want to be insulin sensitive, we need to eat a diet that is sufficient in carbohydrates consistently and also low in fat. So we're telling our body, hey, there's food available. Insulin can do its job correctly. We can increase the metabolic rate because we have all of this fuel to work with now to convert into energy to now live a more productive life in whatever way that you desire. If we are having an elevated blood glucose level, a chronically elevated one, that signals that there's something wrong with the diet, okay? It's where the body is being told, hey, we need to leave this sugar in the bloodstream so that we can turn on de novo lipogenesis and store it as fat. Okay, so that is the whole goal of insulin resistance, is to promote fat storage because the body thinks that it's been in a famine. So it's very simple concepts. If you don't eat enough carbohydrate, your body thinks it needs to store it. Okay, and if you eat too much fat and it interferes with glucose being taken up by the cells, because now you're blocking the insulin receptor sites with all this extra fat, then you'll have an issue with insulin resistance as well. So both cases, the fix is easy: high carb, low fat, sufficient calories.
You might have felt like a snack, but it was in balance. It was quite happy. It's now got to get those 10 grams of glucose out of the bloodstream. And when you're a child or you're a younger person or you don't abuse your body with carbohydrates, the body will do that. It will do that quite effectively.
Why do you think that children or young people that are active have better insulin sensitivity than older people? And I will tell you exactly why it is, okay? And it's not that when you're a child, you just haven't spent so much time abusing your body with carbohydrate. It's that a child, and I see it in my own children, and I can remember this as a child myself, we love carbs. We want the carbs. When we eat the carbs, it tells our body, ooh, we're full. Ooh, we're satisfied. Ooh, that's what we wanted to eat, because we understand as children the importance of carbohydrate for energy production. We don't know this, but we know intuitively that that is what we're supposed to eat. And it translates to energy. So you see, you give some kids a bunch of sugar. What do they do next? They go burn it off. They're going and playing and being crazy. And that is, what sugar does, is it gives us energy. So, people don't abuse their body with carbohydrates. People abuse their body by limiting carbohydrates and eating too much fat. And a lot of times carbohydrate is a Trojan horse for fat. So we eat something that's high carb, like a pizza, right? But that pizza is actually 50% fat too, especially if the dough is made with oil and there's a bunch of cheese and dead animal pieces on it. So context is everything.
But I think type 2 diabetes is the body saying, look, enough is enough. You ask me to take glucose out of breakfast, then you give me a snack in the middle of the morning, then you have another, low calorie, low fat, high carb lunch, then you do it again in the afternoon, then you do it again at dinner, then you do it again in the evening. And you've been doing that for years now, and I'm done. I'm out.
Okay, people don't get diabetes when they eat a high carb, low fat diet. So most people who get diabetes from eating a standard American diet that is high carb but also high fat, and the fat content is too high. I love how she's referencing, people getting diabetes from eating a high carb, low fat diet, when I don't know a single person other than the people that I coach and, some other ones in my social circle and myself who actually eat a low fat diet. Most people don't eat a low fat diet. And the other thing about it though is that you can become insulin resistant eating a high carb, low fat diet if you're not eating sufficient calories. So for a woman that looks, a sedentary woman, that's about 2,000 calories a day, sedentary male, 2,500 calories a day. So if you're any bit active, you're going to need more than that. So just keep that in mind when it comes to insulin sensitivity.
You know, I just can't keep getting that 4 grams back where it needs to be. And then
the other thing with diabetes too is what causes diabetes is spending too much time in gluconeogenesis. So gluconeogenesis is when our body has to turn on its backup fuel generating mechanisms so that we can supply sufficient glucose to our cells for ATP or energy production. So gluconeogenesis happens when our cells sense that there's not enough energy or not enough fuel present, not enough glucose present. So it's all glucose sensors, right? So this generally means that you've either run out of glycogen or you have insulin resistance. So the sugar that's in your blood isn't able to get into your cells. So the cell, even though there's enough sugar in the blood and insulin is trying to get that sugar out of the blood and into the cells, you have a blockage here, either from a high fat diet or because you've been calorie restricting where you can't get the sugar out of the blood and into the cells. So the cells are saying, hey, we're starving here. And then the liver starts producing sugar from amino acids predominantly. So it starts tapping into either the dietary protein that you've consumed recently or your muscle tissue. So a lot of people who have diabetes end up having a lot of muscle loss, and then you've got the fat storage. So whenever you turn on gluconeogenesis, you are also increasing cortisol and telling your body, hey, we're in a famine state, we need to store. So the insulin, the high insulin level from the elevated blood glucose mixed with gluconeogenesis being utilized and turned on just creates this cascade of fat storage and muscle loss. So in order to reverse this process, you have to take the fat out of the diet. So diabetes isn't an issue of the sugar in the blood. It's the fact that we can't get the sugar out of the blood and into the cells, and that has everything to do with insulin.
Then if it doesn't keep it level, then you might dip down below the 4 grams, and that's when you do start craving food. I mean, this is one of the first things that I wrote about. My first book actually came out 20 years ago this year, and it was one of the conditions that I wrote about then that drive cravings. If you ever get to the point that your body doesn't keep that sort of stable 4 grams of glucose, you will get what people now describe as hangry, hunger and anger, irritability. The body will drive you to get some glucose back in, but of course you need 1 gram, maybe you.
Oh my gosh. You know, the scary thing is that this lady, it sounds like she's a published author. Oh man. So she is not helping the cause right now, which is the fact that, you know, diabetes is continuing to rise, and she's definitely steering people in that direction. So when your blood glucose levels drop, it's a sign that you need to eat and that you waited too long to eat. So you're using glucagon, which is again stimulating the liver to either release stored glycogen or triggering gluconeogenesis to release sugar back into the bloodstream so that we can increase blood glucose levels. So you know, the way to just maintain normal blood glucose levels, which is what she's trying to tell you, that you don't need to eat in order to keep your blood sugar level normal. And then when your blood sugar level drops, you really don't need to eat a lot in order to bring it back up. So like, what are you talking about? Okay, we're designed to eat. If you look at any animal in nature, that's what their mission is every single day, is to find food. So we are designed to eat. we're designed to eat carbohydrate because carbohydrate is our primary fuel source for energy production. So we eat the carbs. We use insulin to drive the glucose in our blood from our meal into our cells and into storage in the form of glycogen in order to maintain blood glucose levels. And then we use the glycogen in order to maintain blood glucose levels when we're not eating. And when we get low on glycogen and when we start turning on gluconeogenesis, it signals to our body, hey, it's time to eat. Okay. Our hunger signals kick in generally before we reach gluconeogenesis. Okay. Which is a good thing because we don't want to be turning on gluconeogenesis. We don't want to be converting protein, our muscle tissue, into energy. We want to be using our glycogen, and when our glycogen gets low, we eat to keep our blood sugar levels stable. So this woman, it's kind of scary that she is an authority figure on this topic when she has absolutely no clue what she's talking about. So we'll listen a little bit more and then I'm going to wrap this up.
You dip down to about 3 something, you need 1 gram. And of course, people go and have a rice cake or an apple and they're back shooting in another 10 grams that they didn't need. So this.
So what exactly is she thinking that we need to eat then? And why is she completely disregarding the fact that we turn glucose into energy? It's not that it just like hangs about in our body and just instantly becomes fat. Like carbohydrates aren't just insta fat. Okay. Maybe I need to show some of the mechanisms for this. Okay. So we'll go into my coaching program here. And okay, so here is cellular respiration. And so a byproduct of photosynthesis is this molecule here, and it's called glucose. And then in our cells, this is a mitochondria, we use oxygen and glucose to generate ATP. Okay. So here is another just chart here. We get pyruvate from glycolysis, which is the breakdown of glucose, and this generates this acetyl-CoA, which fuels the Krebs cycle for ATP production. Okay. Acetyl-CoA can also be supplied by fatty acids, but we're going to talk about this molecule right here, oxaloacetate. So when we drive this system here, okay, glucose drives the Krebs cycle, and it's not just driving it through this acetyl-CoA, which again can be supplied by fatty acids, but glucose supplies oxaloacetate, okay, which oxaloacetate is a primary driver of the Krebs cycle. So we need this oxaloacetate and we need this acetyl-CoA. When oxaloacetate levels get low, that is when our metabolism slows down and we turn on gluconeogenesis. Oh, actually, the turning of gluconeogenesis on happens when oxaloacetate levels are low. Okay, so it's like a backup mechanism for the last ditch effort of supplying carbohydrate to the system. I have another chart here where we talk about gluconeogenesis. Maybe it was up here. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Where do I want to go? Yeah, so gluconeogenesis, the creation of glucose from non-carbohydrate substrates. So this can include protein, fat, and lactate. We're mostly using protein here, and we're going to do that via muscle protein breakdown. And yeah, so we got gluconeogenesis that can supply this pyruvate as well. But when we do this, when we turn this on, it happens because of this low oxaloacetate. So the low oxaloacetate is what slows down the metabolic rate because we can't keep this up. We can't, with the lack of glucose coming in, we can't keep this this rate up. Okay. So it slows down. And then when you're in gluconeogenesis for long enough, eventually you're going to turn on ketosis, which is you're going to be taking this acetyl-CoA that's feeding into the Krebs cycle, and you're going to backfeed it to create ketones as a last ditch effort. But ketosis and gluconeogenesis are going to run at the same time, because gluconeogenesis is going to be still supplying some glucose to the system, because ketosis cannot supply all of our energy demands when we are in a starvation situation. So even if you're eating like a keto diet, you're still going to be running gluconeogenesis, and that is what is programming your body to be insulin resistant following your famine situation. All right, let's listen a little bit more. Actually,
whole carbohydrate intake thing is absolutely catastrophic for one of our most delicate mechanisms in the body. Hey.
oh my gosh. Do doctors, now I have to approach this, in a way that is not offensive, but doctors do not get a whole lot of training in nutrition. And I think when you are blaming the body's ability to not regulate, that you're inherently saying that our body cannot regulate its glucose levels when we consume carbohydrate, it's absolute fallacy. I mean, I highly suggest that this Dr. Harcombe gets a copy of my coaching program and learns about some general nutrition principles, and also go ahead and read this by Percival Hemsworth, okay? Because sugar tolerance is impaired by starvation of the taking of diets with a high content of fat, while it is improved by taking diets containing excess of carbohydrates. So if you cannot metabolize carbohydrate, you have insulin resistance, which means that you need to address other areas of the diet and not blame the carbohydrates. Okay, well, listen a little bit more.
It's going to lead to weight gain and also fat blocking for people that want to start burning body fat. Every time they have carbs and spike the glucose, insulin follows, and then that puts us into a fat storage mode. And for most people these days, they want to lose the fat. So they're going to continuously, by snacking on these carbs throughout the day, block that fat burning system.
Yeah, 100%. And
that's 100% false. That is only the case if you have insulin resistance, which, again, the insulin resistance is caused by a fatty diet and insufficient carbohydrate intake. Can we please stop blaming the carbohydrates? You have to drink a 50-gram glucose solution with an oral glucose tolerance test to diagnose insulin resistance, okay? Pre-diabetes, diabetes. If your glucose level fails to fall 2 hours after consuming this glucose solution, which she is going to say is way, way, way too much, but it's the standard in medical practice, okay? If your level is not 140 or lower, then you have insulin resistance. It's not the sugar's fault, okay? It's from what you've been previously doing to your body that has disabled insulin from working properly. Insulin is designed to take the glucose and put it into the cells. So you actually end up, when you're insulin sensitive, having low circulating insulin levels because you don't need to overuse insulin. It just comes in, does its job, and then it's out. All right. The problem lies in when you have chronically elevated blood glucose levels and you have high circulating insulin. This is what is diagnosed as insulin resistance, right? That's what programs the body for this fat storage. So it all comes down to whether you're insulin sensitive or insulin resistant. If you're insulin resistant, your body is going to favor fat storage. And why? because of the sensing of the carbohydrate famine in the cells. The cells are saying, hey, we're not getting enough glucose. And the body is saying, okay, well, we'll try to fix this for you by pumping out more insulin to drive the blood sugar down, right? But when you have insulin resistance, that process doesn't happen the way that it's supposed to. So either way, the body is screaming out, the cells are screaming out for glucose for energy production. And when they're not getting enough, then the body says, hey, we need to store fat because we're in a famine. And when the cells are getting enough glucose, then de novo lipogenesis is downregulated.
I was at a conference last week and I'd done my talk, and it was to quite often these are the best talks to do actually, because I quite often talk at low carb conferences or talk.
She often talks at low carb conferences. Okay. How are we not surprised? How can you be a doctor and support a low carb diet? It literally is like a red flag to me that you have absolutely no idea how the human metabolism works.
Conferences or something like that, and you've got a lot of people in the audience who think they know something about nutrition, and they can be the most challenging audiences.
That's because you're wrong about nutrition. So if people are coming to these low carb conferences and then they're challenging the low carb dogma, of course they're going to be perceived as difficult, right? But that's because those people inherently suspect that something about what you're proposing is not correct. And they're right.
So this was actually,
we all have cravings for carbohydrates. And it's really funny, actually, in the keto carnivore movement, you see them recreating wraps and bread and ice cream and high carb foods because the brain is like, give me the carbs, give me the carbs. And they're trying to trick the body into thinking that this is going to be satiating when, you're still just continuing to contribute to the underlying insulin resistance that is present from the low carb diet, the low carb high fat diet. I work with a lot of ex carnivores, ex keto people, and they all present with similar blood work in that their lipid profile is high in terms of total cholesterol and LDL cholesterol. And they also generally have other indicators of insulin resistance. A lot of times fasting glucose is okay, but then postprandial is elevated, and those are just clear signs of insulin resistance. And this is people coming from eating a diet that literally programmed their body to be that way, a low carb, high fat diet.
You're talking to 150 of the most senior police in the southwest of England. So they didn't know too much about nutrition. So they were just like sponges, like, wow, this is fascinating. Never really thought about.
It's really sad that she's giving nutrition talks, considering that she doesn't know what she's talking about. I feel bad for the audience. But this is what's trending, this is what people are listening to. This is what the algorithm is pumping out. And the reason for that is because it fits the agenda. Eat more animals, keep fueling that business, and then ending up in the medical system because you're going to need XYZ treatments because of what eating that diet has done to your body. Again, just going back over people who are living the high carb, low fat lifestyle, let's click on this. Let's just do a quick search here. Okay, get fit with Natasha. Woo. Here she is. Now, Natasha has never been overweight, and she has been consuming a high carb, low fat diet for the majority of her life since she was a child. Her grandmother put her on this diet. Natasha is a lean bean who looks and is very, very healthy. She's an incredible athlete, and she you know, has the food and body freedom lifestyle. Okay, so she's a really good example of somebody who's been doing this long term for the majority of their life. Okay, another one. Okay, we got Hadley here. Lean bean, also an athlete, unlimited carbohydrates, food and body freedom. Let's see here. I want to go with Durian Rider. These people aren't special, okay? Here's Michelle from China, high carb, low fat diet. Okay, here is Harley Johnstone. He's almost 50 years old, runs a 5K in his new PR was 16:21. I'm nowhere even close to that. I just want to do my next 5K race, which is next weekend in 25 minutes. But you get the idea, okay? So we aren't special. We just know how to eat in order to have this like food and body freedom, to eat all of the carbs, right? To be slim for life. This is me on vacation, me and my husband, who's actually lost weight too, eating more carbs, less fat, right? And exercising more. Here's Keisha again. Before and after, she's lost 50 pounds. It can take a while, to become like more insulin sensitive, especially if you're coming from a background of restriction, which is what everybody is promoting. So they're actually making your job harder in terms of getting the lean body results that you want, because then you have to work through some adaptive thermogenesis, which can just make the process take longer. So what it looks like when you're in recovery, metabolic recovery, because this under eating carbohydrates and eating a high fat diet promotes what I refer to as metabolic damage. And the reason why I call it that is because of the disruption in metabolism that occurs from eating in a way that is not ideal for your body. So you can lower thyroid function, create insulin resistance, elevated lipid profiles. It can cause anemia. It can cause all kinds of other health problems. So when you come onto a high carb, low fat diet from a low carb diet and a high fat diet, you're going to go through a transitionary phase. And this is, for some, requires extensive weight gain. For others, requires just a little bit of weight gain. And for others, it depends on your genetics and what your background is. It can result in weight loss right away. So depends. But the more restriction you've done and the closer you are to having done that recently, I'm talking low carb, high fat diet, then you can expect, some initial weight gain, and then you're going to plateau. And then you're going to plateau until your body is healed up, hormonally speaking, metabolically speaking. And then you can expect your weight to start coming down. So a lot of weight loss with the low carb, calorie restrictive, high fat diet comes in the form of water weight loss. And that can happen very rapidly. And fat loss is still happening, but the rate at which that fat loss is occurring is slow in comparison to what it is when you eat sufficient carbohydrates. So a lot of the weight gained initially is fluid, and that is designed so that you can be hydrated, properly hydrated, and all of your, homeostatic mechanisms can work properly. because now you're properly hydrated. Glycogen stores replenish. That accounts for 2 to 4 pounds on the scale. And now that the system is all balanced again and metabolically healthy, we can start burning fat, and fat burns in the flame of carbohydrates. So it has a lot to do with that oxaloacetate. Okay. So when we are generating energy in our cells, we are utilizing glucose and fatty acids, but glucose has to drive the process. Okay. We need to have that oxaloacetate there in order to drive the TCA cycle. And then fatty acids get fed into the cycle through acetyl-CoA, but also succinyl-CoA. And that has a lot to do with having adequate B12 stores. So it is important to make sure that your B12 levels are topped up. Preferably through a supplement. Most people are vitamin B12 deficient because they have some kind of malabsorption issue. So it's important to get your levels checked via blood work and make sure you're supplementing as needed so that your body has the maximum ability to burn body fat. So we'll watch a little bit more of this and then I'm going to call it.
Food in that way, they were loving it. And so my talk was last, it was just before we were going to have some free time before dinner, and somebody came up to me and said, so should I not be joining Slimming World then? And I said, okay, do you want to know how to lose weight in 10 minutes? And of course she said, yeah. And then a few others sort of gathered around and said, yeah, I want to hear it too. So I sort of grabbed a flip chart and you go through.
Okay, something I'm noticing by like having the screen really big is that she's got some kind of like teeth issues, you know, and that can be common with people who are from the UK, but I'm just noticing like some blackness. I'll see if I can
sort of this
pause it right here. It's either like the teeth are fake or something is going on there where like, you know, I get asked a lot if I have teeth issues eating this way, and I have zero. I'm due to go to the dentist the end of the month. And I go for cleaning every 6 months, and every time I go, you know, my teeth are in perfect condition. And I owe that a lot to staying hydrated, eating a high carb, low fat diet, having internal hydration stores, practicing good dental hygiene. But sugar is pH neutral, so it's not going to damage teeth enamel, but you also just want to keep your teeth clean in general as well. But eating a low carb diet is going to damage your teeth more so. It's going to cause a lot of erosion and due to the acidity of burning ketones and burning protein for fuel, you're creating more of an acidic environment that needs to be buffered by calcium in the bones. So a lot of that can get damaged, you know, teeth damage, osteoporosis, things like that. A lot of people have been asking me too, like, what causes osteoporosis in vegans? Because sometimes people will present with that. It's generally due to undereating. Because osteoporosis doesn't specifically affect vegans, which only make up about 1% of the population in the United States. It affects way more than that. And it generally affects women more than men. And it has everything to do with like consumption of caffeine and coffee and tea and those kinds of things, but also just general under eating of carbohydrate calories.
This is what you currently think. You think
the other thing too, she definitely has like some bags under her eyes. You know, she looks quite slim, but a lot of that is just going to be coming from the calorie restrictive nature of the diet. If she started eating carbohydrates, she's going to start packing on the weight, and the insulin resistance is going to show its face, right? But eating a low carb diet, you keep it suppressed. But this doesn't mean that you are not going to be subject to symptoms of insulin resistance.
It's about energy in, energy out. What happens the minute you try to eat less? So they say, oh, you get hungry and you want to eat more. Right, okay. And then are you able to do more? No, because you're too hungry because you didn't eat enough. Great. So you've got why calorie counting is really not a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, that's legitimate. The calories in, calories out theory is definitely getting thrown out as more and more people start to understand that in order to have more energy for a higher output, you have to put more energy in. By reducing your energy consumption, you reduce your energy output. And we actually see that metabolically too, in metabolic rates slowing down, your basal metabolic rate slowing down. And again, it has everything to do with that oxaloacetate formation from glucose, right? So you have less coming in, you have a down regulation of the ability to create energy in the cells. And then the body's going to be programmed for storage as well, because it's sensing a famine. So our bodies are smarter than we are.
Do you understand physiologically the state that you need to be in to lose weight? Do you actually understand what weight loss is? Because it isn't just a calorie deficit. And they kind of look at you like, no, I've never thought about that. So you say, okay, so
right. This is about insulin sensitivity. It's not calories in, calories out at all. Hormones dictate what your body looks like. And when it comes to weight loss versus weight gain, it has everything to do with insulin sensitivity versus insulin resistance.
What is body fat? Triglyceride, tri meaning 3, you've got a glycerol backbone, you've got 3 fats essentially, and it can't get through the cell membrane. So it actually gets packaged with the help of insulin in the cell in that form, sort of on the other side. So the fat has got to get in there and the glucose has got to get in there. And of course, insulin does a marvelous job at doing that. So then you say to them, okay.
She just acknowledged that insulin does a marvelous job at putting glucose into the cells. So why is she so anti blood sugar increasing when you eat carbohydrate?
If you want to lose weight, you want that fat out of the storage system. You want to start using that for energy, whether it's the glycerol backbone or the triglycerides or whatever. You want to use that for energy. Do you know what?
And we do use that for energy via beta oxidation that contributes acetyl-CoA to the TCA cycle. And we can use more when our rate of energy generation is higher, when there is sufficient glucose coming in.
What state you need to be in to be able to use that for energy. Forget calories. And they all kind of look at you like, no idea, not even thought about that. It's like, okay, so if your body can see any carbohydrate present, any stored carbohydrate, which is glycogen, they know that word because they do exercise, it's not going to call on fat.
See, this is where she's wrong, because we are always burning fat and carbohydrate. The carbohydrate is a kindling for lighting that log on fire. Okay, we can't just light a log on fire and it's not going to burn. Okay, we need kindling there, and that's what glucose is. Glucose lights the fire, and we run out of glucose so quickly, but we don't run out of body fat so quickly, right? It's more of like a trickle. Fat loss is a trickle every single day. So, and we need insulin sensitivity there so that we're not programmed the body for fat storage, we're programmed for fat burning. But in order for this fat burning to be taking place, we need glucose in sufficient amounts of it to be present so that we can properly run this TCA cycle efficiently and be utilizing beta oxidation of fats contributing to this energy generation cycle as well. So a lot of people think, oh, you're only just ever burning carbs or burning fats. The only time carbohydrate burning is disengaged is right when you're consuming a meal. So insulin will shut it down, but you're still utilizing glucose in your cells, okay, from meals prior in order to generate energy. Whenever you are breathing, you're burning glucose, you're burning energy. Okay.
It's not going to call on any fat. It's not going to call on dietary fat or body fat because you've got another fuel source present. So the first thing you have to do is to not have that fuel present.
So she's suggesting ketosis, but like I said, even in ketosis, you're still running gluconeogenesis because you can't supply all of the energy that your body needs via ketones. And not to mention all of the side effects that come from running ketosis. It's a backup mechanism for survival in the presence of a famine.
And you explain to them about your glycogen storeroom, how much you've got to cut that back so that you're not filling it up to its capacity of about 1,400 calories per day. So, like, guys, you've got to whack your carbohydrate down as low as you can go and then halve it again and just keep going until you really can sustain it at, quite a reasonable level.
She's telling people to starve themselves. She's giving people metabolic damage and insulin resistance. And she doesn't even realize it.
Then your body is going to look for the next fuel source to fuel on, which is going to be fat. You're going to force it to do that. If you've just gone and eaten butter because you think that's how to do a keto diet, you're going to be fueling on your butter that you've just eaten. If you actually want to fuel on body fat, you've got to not have carbohydrate present, and also don't start doing stupid things like adding fat to food. Just eat normally, massively cut your carbohydrate intake, and then probably at about 3-4 o'clock in the morning the body is going to lose weight because it's going to need to tap into an alternative fuel source. But
okay, so don't eat carbs, don't eat fat, but eat regularly. So what are we eating? Like air? Because if you're eating foods that contain carbohydrates, which are fruits, vegetables, and starches and legumes, okay, can't eat any of those because they have carbs. And then if you are eating fats, right, or you want to avoid eating fats, well, fish, chicken, beef, um dairy, eggs, all of those foods contain varying levels of fat. So what are you eating? I guess you're just drinking water and you're drinking tea. And then at 3 a.m, when cortisol is waking you up to go find food, you're just going to say, no, I'm burning fat today. Okay.
For as long as you're eating carbohydrates all day long, it is physiologically impossible, no matter how many calories you eat, for you to lose weight if you're over what your body needs in terms.
So apparently she's telling Keisha that the weight that she just lost, was impossible to do because she was eating unlimited carbohydrates. Are you guys gathering that? Okay. So she's trying to say that these folks, all right, who are slim on carbs are somehow metabolically exempt from how the human body works, when the reality is that we just understand how the human body works. Okay. We aren't special here. We just understand how the metabolism works. Okay. We'll listen a little bit longer. Oh boy.
Of fuel, which might be a paltry 800 calories a day, might be that low. Ate them all in the form of carbohydrate, and you probably still ate more than you needed in the form of carbohydrate. And they got it.
She just told people that eating 800 calories a day is probably what you need, but if you're eating it from carbohydrate, that it's too much. Like, this lady has an eating disorder and she's promoting eating disorders
so fast. It was unbelievable.
Let's get into specifics there. You mentioned 800 calories. Is that carbohydrates per day they would have to bring it down to, or what was that number?
It's just, so if you go back to that woman on the 2,000 calories, as I say, I don't know exactly how much carbohydrate can be used for the basal metabolic rate. It's something I've had on my research list for ages. It's really not easy to find out.
This lady's heading in the wrong direction with her research.
And if anyone's listening to this and they've got an idea, please get in touch. As a basic principle, it is largely fueled by fat and protein because it is building bone density, fighting infection, cell repair, and that stuff needs fat and protein. Now, if you're
actually, it needs carbohydrate. Carbohydrate drives every single cellular function in your body. Okay. Our needs for protein as women, 46 grams a day, men, 56 grams a day. That's like a measly, well, let me just do the math here real quickly. 46 grams times 4 would be like 200 calories. That's it for your requirements. And then fat you can go as low as like 2% of your diet. I recommend people eat 10 grams of fat a day if weight loss is the goal, to promote insulin sensitivity. That's 90 calories. Okay. That's all you need. The rest of your needs come from carbohydrate, because that's what fuels energy production. We don't need to constantly be repairing our system. Okay. We have enough endogenous protein in order to do that. We recycle 70 to 100 grams a day. We have enough. We're very efficient at recycling structural components within our system for building it back up and repairing. What we need in order to fuel all of that, though, is carbohydrate. So you put a hindrance on your body's ability to recover from anything when you don't consume enough carbs.
Lying ill in bed all day, and that's your basal metabolic rate requirement, you will also be keeping your body warm, and carbohydrates can provide energy, so they can keep the body warm. So there is an element of that 1500. Now, even if
this lady's full of contradictions,
I go really generous and say, right, let's assume of the 1500 calories based on metabolic rate, 500 of those could be met by carbohydrate. That's probably quite high. There's still 1,000 that you need in the form of fat and protein. So if somebody goes on one of those stupid low calorie,
no, you don't need 1,000 calories of fat and protein a day. You're just going to be converting the bulk of that back into glucose to fuel your system. And in the meantime, you're lowering your metabolic rate and programming your body for insulin resistance.
Milkshake, diet drink kind of things, the Cambridge diet or whatever, they are largely carbohydrate, because they can't have more than about 15% protein by law. They don't want to put fat in because it puts the calories up. So they are largely carbohydrate, and they're actually also largely sucrose, which is quite amusing. You're eating more than you probably needed for energy, which is back to that sort of 500 calories a day. So you really...
Is she suggesting that people eat 500 calories a day? This lady is... I wonder what kind of doctor she actually is. She's a researcher, author, blogger, and public speaker in the field of diet and health. She's researched obesity and overeating for over 20 years, and her alternative approach to weight loss has helped thousands of people to lose weight quickly, easily, and healthfully. Not sustainably, though. I am going to look her up real quick. I think we've heard enough. This lady is full of contradictions. She doesn't understand how insulin sensitivity works. She also is all over the place. I mean, like with her calorie promotion, eat 1,500 calories a day, but get 1,000 of it from fat and protein. She's very misinformed. It looks like she's a PhD. Okay. It also looks like she's aged quite a bit too, but that is definitely something that happens when you consume that kind of a diet. I'm just trying to see what she has a PhD in. Okay, let's see here. She is a BA and MA from Cambridge University in economics and math. So she doesn't have a background in biology. She has a PhD in public health nutrition. And she did a thesis on examination of the randomized controlled trial and epidemiological evidence for the introduction of dietary fat recommendations in 1977 and 1983, a systematic review and meta-analysis. Okay. So she is... her research has been done in dietary fat, being the first person to examine the evidence base for the dietary fat guidelines at the time of their introduction, discovering that not only was the randomized controlled trial evidence non-supportive of the introduced guidelines, but that fewer than 2,500 sick men had been studied in the process. So from what I understand about listening to her is that she has a fundamental misunderstanding of what is required for a person to be insulin sensitive versus insulin resistant. So she would have really benefited from just coming across Percival Hemsworth's work and understanding that sugar tolerance is impaired by starvation and the taking of diets with a high content of fat. So she's literally advocating for a diet that makes people insulin resistant because she doesn't understand these fundamental principles of, starvation on the human body. Whereas if you don't consume enough glucose, your body thinks it's starving. It programs for insulin resistance, and that's what drives fat storage in the presence of carbohydrates when there isn't sufficient carbohydrate available. So that's why in her research, if she has people eating 1,500 calories a day of 500 calories of carbohydrate, and then they start eating more and they start gaining fat, that would be the mechanism for it, because the diet that she prescribed made them insulin resistant in the first place. And then we're not addressing the underlying insulin resistance that is at play here. That has been the, variable that has not been addressed, right? So you improve sugar tolerance by eating a diet containing excessive carbohydrate, and it's really simple. And it's just because you're giving the body the fuel it needs to create energy, and it says, I'm not starving. So we downregulate fat storage. And that's why the folks who eat a high carb, low fat diet long term all get really great results. Okay. So I think that's about it for this video today, you guys. And I hope you enjoyed. And just remember, the proof is in the pudding here. Okay. So you can get incredible results just being consistent with a high carb, low fat diet. All right. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video. And I hope you liked it. Leave a comment or question down below. Let me know what you want me to talk about next. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.